I was on this kind of pilgrimage to heal and to make sense of what just happened to me. Why did this happen to me? Why couldn't I save him? I had all the resources. I was tapped into like plant medicine and Western, and yet I couldn't save this person that I love so much. But it's like been on that journey of losing him to finding myself and loving myself in a way that I didn't before.
Ricki Lake, you made it down from the northern part of LA.
Yes.
Down to Laguna Beach.
All the way from beautiful, sunny Malibu.
Malibu.
It's much sunnier today than when I spoke to you yesterday.
Yeah, and we're noticing the same thing here. I actually was laying in the sun for 45 minutes today, just soaking it all up because I know it's going to be short-lived. Hopefully not. But anyways, thank you for being here on Wake the Fake Up. Hallelujah. This came together like a miracle tornado. And
I'm happy to be here. We have met before, and I've been sort of following you more lately. And yeah, I mean, because it is a big deal that I came down here. I first of all, I'm a little burnt out. I've been doing a lot of podcasts, but I was really called to be here with you.
I really appreciate that, and I feel that. And we had that slight conversation the other day, back and forth about this, and it was 7 years ago.
It was 2017.
Yep, so almost 7 years ago, 6 years ago, Symbiosis, Oregon Eclipse Festival, we ran into each other. Mm-hmm. And that was the Great American Eclipse where supposedly the moon eclipsed across North America, and it started in Oregon, and it was a 7-day, 8-day event in the middle of an Oregon forest, and it was completely wild, and that led up into Burning Man. And you and I crossed paths from mutual friends, and I felt your frequency. I felt your heart.
Did you know who I was at the time?
I kind of knew who you were.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an idea who you were. I knew that you were that you had a talk show, but I wasn't really tuned in to the talk show or anything like that. But your name is what I knew. And then when I saw you, I was like, okay, this person looks really familiar to me. And you're around some of my loved ones, people that I've had known for 10 years, that I had been in the medicine world with, that I've gone on journeys with, like real soul family. And from there, I was like, okay, she's awesome. And I've been following you since and seeing the things that you're doing and what you're standing for and what you've gone through. And you're just really living with full authenticity, your heart wide open, standing in your power and unveiling like your God mode to everybody around you. And the more I learn more about you, the more I'm intrigued and the more I'm seeing what you're doing. Because you and I, we stand in a similar position, is that we see a lot of the things that have gone wrong with this world. We've seen systems that are archaic, draconian, whatever you want to call it, that are causing, this world to like fall apart in the most intricate parts that we need to be thriving. And so I just want to ask you, I want to get into your story, but I just want to ask you today, how do you feel about where we are as a humanity?
I mean,
Tough
I was
question.
just telling you off air that I'm an optimist. I'm someone that really sees this glass as half full,
Right.
And I'm super positive, but no, I'm not going to lie. Like, I am worried. I am worried about, my children's children. And, I have two sons that are 26 and almost 22. He'll be 22 next week. And I am really okay with them not having kids because I just, and I selfishly want to see my lineage. I want to see what that, who that person is. And, but we've had many conversations about it, particularly with my older son, and he's, he doesn't feel like now he's of course in love and in a relationship, so maybe he'll feel differently. But I'm scared. Like I am. I'm really, I'm a little bit of a worrier,
Sure.
And but I I can only control what I can control,
Right.
and so I am personally like we were saying earlier, like the world around us feels like it is just imploding on itself, in so many areas, and climate and politics and AI and all this shit that I don't understand. But like in my bubble, in my little world, I am in a blissful state 24/7 with this life that I have manifested and created. I don't come from money. I don't come from nepotism. Or, I was very, very lucky to meet John Waters, this filmmaker, when I was 18 years old, and he cast me in my first role, Hairspray, and that put me on the map, and that opened every door. And I played this iconic character. I created Tracy Turnblad, this iconic role of this heavyset, overweight girl who, wins the contest and gets the guy and, speaks up for against segregation. It's it's about race relations from the 60s in Baltimore. It's a movie you haven't seen, but you should see it. And
we're watching it this weekend.
Yeah, it's playing.
Yeah.
I mean, of all things, it's playing. Yeah. I cannot believe how trippy is that this movie that I starred in 1988 is being re-released for the 35th year anniversary this weekend. It's just wild. But but I don't know how I segued to that, but like just the life I live now, it's like I've created this sacred home in Malibu that took forever to create and build, and it was a nightmare from start to finish. My partner, my husband, who we founded together, Christian Evans, he passed away in 2017, right before I met you. Literally, his passing, which was. He lost his life to suicide and bipolar disorder, and he struggled his whole life. And that loss brought me to my knees. I mean, I just didn't know how I would ever find my joy again. And it was a really dark time for me, and I was on this kind of pilgrimage to heal and to make sense of what just happened to me. Why did this happen to me? Why couldn't I save him? I had all the resources. I had, I was tapped into like plant medicine and Western and, I was like in the know, and yet I couldn't save this person that I love so much. But it's like been on that journey of losing him to finding myself and loving myself in a way that I didn't before. And just, he was my greatest teacher, my greatest gift. Like, honestly, I'm profoundly better having had him, loved him, and lost him. And my life these days is pretty blissful. So like doom and gloom, but like I love this life I'm living. I love the work I'm doing. I love the people in my life. I love that I have these children. And it's all just like, it's all like fun and play. And I'm in a great time in my life.
I feel that from you, and I feel the burden that you must have gone through in that period of time, and losing someone so close when you think you have such a handle on everything. And I went through that with my father, and, I went through really hard lessons in that experience. And it started right around the time you and I met, interesting enough, and carried on into 2019 during his passing. And I look at this life you've lived, and none of this sounds random to me. The whole experience of being discovered by this gentleman, put into this movie, then from there go to here and all that stuff. It's like it's some kind of karmic path.
It's divine.
It's completely divine. There's no randomness at all whatsoever.
And I choose that word because divine, you don't know this, but you will know after this weekend, Divine was an actor that plays my mother in Hairspray. So like I get super high sometimes, and I go into this like rabbit hole of like literally I was birthed by this. He wasn't a drag. He was an actor that was paid to dress in drag, but he's like this iconic person from the 70s, and he was beloved. And Divine died 8 days after the Hairspray came out.
Wow.
So it was like this crazy position I was in where I became a star, just like I do in the movie. My character becomes a star. And here, this amazing, like every door is opening, and I'm like this darling now. And then my co-star passes away, and so it's like, but like this divine stuff that's happened in my life. I just feel like it's a connection, and the fact that it was the actor named Divine that played my mother, and I was her baby is just, I don't know, it's not lost on me, the connection.
You can't make that up.
No.
Yeah, and that's seeing the hypersynchronicity in life. A lot of people don't follow the clues that keep popping up in front of them, and sometimes life can only show you so much. And if you don't accept them and look at them and experience them, it's not going to lead you down the path it's supposed to be leading you down. Mm-hmm. And I really want to understand you getting into being a talk show host. What was that whole experience like? And is it kind of like a dream when you look back at it?
Yeah, I mean, it just was it feels like it's like that was a different me or something. So I was an actor.
Were you
so
a character energetically during that?
Was I a character?
Do you feel like you were embodying a character?
I think I was being completely authentically who I was at that time, but who I was then at 24 and handed a microphone and told to interview these people about their relationships, like who I was then and who I even was at the end of the run of the show. I went from 24 to 35.
Yeah.
Like, I learned so much. I got married at 25 and got divorced at 35. So, I had so much more life experience,
Right.
and but that show came about because I was an actor. I was in Hairspray. I was in a bunch of John Waters movies, and I would go on David Letterman. So David Letterman had that show, and I was always a guest. I was always I'd been on 15 times, and people found me to be authentic and funny and quick. And so that's when they thought of me for this talk show. And the talk show was specifically a show for younger people. This guy, Garth Anseer, he was a TV whiz guy, and he would look at the genres and the demos, and he saw that every show from Oprah at that time, Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael, they're all skewing over the age of 50. So he said, what can I do to do a talk show, same genre, but have it geared towards a younger generation? So I was a younger host, and they gave, literally, I would pretend to be Oprah. Wow. That's what I did in the beginning. And, that, and I'm super curious. I love, just human nature. I'm an open book. I love everything about relationships. So it just was it was not something that I was taught. It was just something I happened to be good at. I didn't know I'd be good at it, and I was relatable. People knew me from Hairspray. I wasn't threatening. I was, I'm just like every woman,
That's what I noticed when I was starting to watch some of them, was that you were very relatable. You didn't seem judgmental, and you had a really soft undertone in your energy. And I remember those shows being it was Jerry Springer and those Maury Povich, and it was just kind of what the hell is this stuff? And I remember my parents wouldn't let me watch it, and it was just kind of craziness. But I didn't get that from what I saw from you energetically. I saw such a guiding light in that space, and you were so young and fresh, and it was fun and hip. I can't even imagine what that was like in the early 90s in New York.
It was amazing.
20, I know. Were you
amazing.
Were you partying your ass off?
No. See, okay, partying, you mean like I wasn't even consuming alcohol. Right. I wasn't cannabis. I was.
But were you in a scene? What were you?
Kind of. I mean, I would go to these dinners, and one that stands out, I went to this dinner. It's actually a crazy story. I went to this dinner at Odeon in Tribeca. Okay. Super cool restaurant, and it was a dinner party, and Madonna was there, and she was dating Tupac. Tupac was there. Literally, yeah.
Tupac?
Tupac was there.
You met Tupac?
I did meet Tupac. I know.
What year is this?
This was in
94?
I think it was 94. It was 94.
I felt it.
94.
Wow.
I went on the air in 93.
Can you hold my hand real quick?
I know. I didn't even really know who he was. Yeah. I had no... I really had no reverence for this opportunity that I was being thrust into. It just was my life.
Yeah.
And so at this dinner, I was seated with this guy from PETA. Okay. So I was newly married to my first husband, who was wanted to be an anarchist and be he was a very
Did you say anarchist?
Yeah, just
against the system?
Against this, just not totally, but wanted to be political, wanted to
disrupt.
Use his challenge the system.
Yeah.
And I'm the person I was, I'm the girl that wanted to be liked by everyone. I was the people pleaser. I wanted to be adorable and not make waves, not it's so interesting.
From childhood?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I'm sure it is from. Yeah, it's you don't want to
ruffle feathers.
And in my household, you didn't really talk about real things. Everything was kind of pushed under the rug.
Got it.
And so he was super intelligent, and so he got me wanting to do stuff to use my voice and my platform.
Sure.
And so we were at this dinner, and Dan's talking about they're going to go and picket. Against fur, the use of fur at it was particularly Karl Lagerfeld, who's a big designer, at Saks Fifth Avenue. And I was like, oh my God, I'm totally against people using fur. I wasn't a vegan or vegetarian, but I was like, this is something I believe in.
Yeah.
I want to help you. And he was like, you do? And I was at like the height. My show was the number one, number two show. I mean, it was the show.
Wow.
I was everywhere. And so I was like, absolutely, like I'm completely earnest, naive, and like wanting to help.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, sign me up. And Rob is like, this is gonna be so romantic. We're gonna do this together. Now, when you see Hairspray, you'll see my character goes to jail fighting for integration. So like, it was so like life imitating art because I signed, so the night before they called and said, we've moved the location from Saks Fifth Avenue outside on the street to Karl Lagerfeld's offices, which made it a felony instead of a misdemeanor.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I ended up going to jail for 30 hours and went and did Letterman from jail. Like, it's a whole crazy story, and I don't even know.
How do you do Letterman from jail?
I had to, when I got out of jail, I went straight to Letterman.
Oh,
and I
wow.
did my pre-interview. I called collect on the payphone that was in the jail cell. She said Mary Connolly said it was her favorite pre-interview she's ever done from the jail cell. I'm literally like behind bars watching myself on the news, which is all in Hairspray.
So
it's all
amazing.
So it was just like the trippiest.
So you're reincarnating the experience.
I don't know
in real
what
life.
it is. I don't know what it is, but it is like, it's trippy and it's my life. And
Hold on.
Yeah.
What network was Ricki
show?
your show on?
It was syndicated, so it wasn't on a network.
syndicated.
It was basically sold in every market in different stations.
Who had a problem with you getting arrested for this?
They did. Oh yeah, my bosses did.
Okay.
Sony Television.
What did that look like?
And it was such a trip because here I am, I'm 26 at that time.
They're like, you're gonna blow it. You're throwing it all away.
Oh, so I'm like, they literally, they get me out of jail. They hire an attorney. I had my assistant bring the outfit that I'm gonna wear on Letterman I'd been in jail for 30 hours.
Were you stoked? Or were you a little bit like?
Scared.
You were scared.
I definitely felt like very strongly that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I felt a little duped by PETA because they went and changed, like they changed the plan, and I didn't know wait a minute, we're going into private offices and we're putting stickers all over his place. Like that's more of a crime. And we handcuffed ourselves and we sat on the floor and we were chanting, what was it? We were chanting, fur is dead. Fashion is the passion. Fur is, I mean, it's so crazy. And in Hairspray, it's like segregation never, integration now. It's just like, it's such a trip. But I was scared. And, on the way, I remember in the car ride, they got me out of jail and they're like trying to get me to distance myself from PETA.
Yeah.
And I don't want to distance. And I was on then Rudy Giuliani, who was the mayor at the time, like he, wanted to make an example out of me, and wanted me to be really to have serious charges. It was
really,
all in all, I don't regret it, but I would not do it again.
Okay. So you go onto Letterman. And what did you say on Letterman?
I was amazing. I was literally amazing. I'm trying to find that footage.
Where
I have it. Well, it's on a VHS tape in my house that I have to digitize. But I'm really good at that. Like I can say, under pressure, I killed it. I was really, I was funny, and I talked about these, there were roaches this big, which in Hairspray, that's another. There were so many, parallels.
Wow.
But I did manage to, and I was on the cover of People magazine that, when you do Letterman, when you do those shows, which I've done so often, you have to come up with anecdotes. You have to come up with, what's your thing?
Yeah.
And I'm in my mind, okay, Dan Matthews from PETA told me to do this. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to have something to talk about. But then Rudy Giuliani and his whole team made it like I was being an opportunist, like I was using this for I didn't need attention at that time. I was wanting to do right for the world. Yeah. Anyway.
Wow.
It was an experience.
Trippy experience. Thanks for showing up and going absolutely berserk. You're a berserk.
Now I do it legally. Now I'm a disruptor, but I do it without getting arrested.
So high risk, high reward. It's trying to figure out what makes the most sense. Okay, so 9/11 happens. You're there in New York. You said you're in the West Village when that.
I'm in the West Village. I'm not only am I in the West Village. The building I lived at was do you know New York?
Yeah.
So 12th Street and Hudson. So Hudson is the street that comes directly from the Twin Towers. That's the street.
That's the line of path.
Right.
Yeah.
And 12th Street was where St. Vincent's is, the hospital. So literally, that's my corner. And I had a 2-month-old and a 4-year-old at the time. And so I was breastfeeding my 2-month-old and watching the Today Show in my bed. And they said it was a small plane. So, my husband said, let's go check it out on the roof. We had a 360 view on 12th Street. And my 4-year-old said, can I come? So we said, sure. So Rob got his camera, and we took our son and went to the roof. And
You're like 7 blocks away?
I think it's like a mile and a half, actually. I don't know how many. It's not far. I mean, it was far enough that I didn't see people falling. I saw debris.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell there were people. But I saw, like, my husband was shooting the building.
But you have a straight shot. You can see
Oh, full straight shot. I'm seeing the next plane. I'm seeing him fly down the Hudson. I'm like, there's another plane. There's another plane. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. There's another plane. Oh, my God.
Shit.
So the whole thing, and he got the impact, the whole thing on his camera. And I was out of my mind, and I think we all were. We all still are. I was screaming like a horror movie, and for a long time, I carried a lot of guilt and shame that I behaved that way in front of my 4-year-old. Because that's what he remembered. He didn't necessarily remember what was happening. He saw his mother losing her shit, and I still just like
don't hold that guilt.
No, I know. I
work.
Absolutely.
You weren't equipped with it. You didn't have the toolbox for that.
Yes,
that's part of whatever the unfolding. But I understand your point.
It was, but I did have an epiphany in that moment, and I did want to make changes in my life if I lived through this. Like, it was one of those, like, if I lived, it was like a moment of like clarity that, and I made some choices, and my marriage ended.
Wait, hold on. Before we go there, did you stay up there and watch them collapse?
Yeah, we saw them. We have all the one tower standing. I kept running up and down. Like, I couldn't feel safe. I couldn't, like, where am I going to go? And it's like, so I kept running to my apartment to check on the baby, and then I'd run back up and run back. So we had everything on our camera.
What did it sound like?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying.
Can you recall the noise and the energy of that big megalithic building crumbling down? However,
I don't think it was that loud as much as like the visual of it. And for me, I did EMDR for a while after that. I was really not okay. And I think part of it was that I was a new mom. I had a newborn, and my hormones are just all about protecting my cubs, and I was so then add that to me having to go back to work in 2 days. They canceled the shows that day or the next day. I had to go back to work 2 days later, and I'm literally like, my hoochie mama thinks I'm blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was like this stupid show. And I have a lot of respect, and like, I loved my show, and it did a lot of good for all kinds of relationships that we would, celebrate and treat equally, and, but it was that, like, I need to do something where I feel like I'm doing something more impactful with the world. Purpose-filled. Yeah. It was like, I can't keep doing this. Yeah. And so I made that decision.
So right after that,
I had to finish my contract. So I had another year and a half. So that was 2001. I finished in 2004.
Got it.
So it was like it was a ways away, and I had to do a bunch of things. I wanted to move out of New York. I was one of those people, and I'm from New York. I went to high school in the city. I'm from just outside the city. I love New York. I'll always be a New Yorker, but I did not feel safe being there anymore. Yeah. Just the idea, and it doesn't really make sense because I live in California where we have earthquakes and we have all the kinds of...
But it's different.
It's different because I felt like the island of Manhattan is just always going to be, the target of...
Target.
Absolutely.
Energetic target on all levels.
And having one child across town at school and one child, like I just couldn't feel safe in the same way before that day.
So you move out of New York in 2004. Your contract ends with your show. And what starts birthing into your reality, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, so I had my home birth, water birth, in that apartment on 12th Street 2 months.
With your second child.
My second son.
Right.
And my first...
How did you know to go into that realm of thought and that way of cultivating life on this earth versus the standard care of birth in a hospital? What changed that for you?
Well, okay, so the first experience that I got to have, so I'm a type A Virgo. So I like to plan things like to the T. Like I
know Virgos.
When I'm family planning, I got the genetic testing, and I'm on this hit show, I'm making money, let's do this thing. And I got pregnant the first time I tried with both of my children, which is amazing. But it was really when I was starting to think about family planning, when I was like 26 years old. A friend had a friend that had an amazing out of birth center birth, so an unmedicated birth, and I saw her like she had just, you stay when you're in a birth center, you're there for a few hours and you go home. So I saw her like the next day. So here she is, this like 1-day-old baby, this perfectly beautiful baby, and this story that she just shared with me, and I was like, when I have a baby, I want that. Like I want to do that, and that was like what I thought. Like I didn't know was possible.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with my first son a year later. I got pregnant right away and had my experience, and I had what I considered to be unnecessary interventions in the hospital. Wow. I had a vaginal birth, but I did have all these other things that caused. I had Stadol, which really made me paranoid. Wow. I had an epidural. I, yeah. And so, it was just a medicalized, like, my body. And the reason I had all that intervention, according to them, was I was failure to progress because my water broke. And I made the mistake of calling my midwife. I was so excited. My water broke in like dramatic fashion in my bathroom. And I called the midwife. And she's like, that starts the clock with the hospital system because it was a birth center that was attached to the hospital. Yeah. So you have a 24-hour window to have your baby.
They have their time systems and their time stamps. Mm-hmm. And then every minute, every hour after whatever, if you're not at a certain point or a certain diameter or whatever, it's okay, stress is on, we got to do this, we got to do this.
Yes. And so it's just you're in that system. And so I had to go to the hospital. And the minute, when they move you from the birth center to because then they gave me a few hours and nothing was really happening, probably because I'm in a hospital setting, it's just, so they moved me and I, in the end, I had a healthy baby. I was a healthy mom. I bonded easily, breastfeed, and it was a successful birth, but I realized that like if I were to have another child, I wanted to do it differently. Right. And
I think right there, just not to cut you off, but that's an important distinction to say is that, we're not telling the world that if you have a child in the hospital, the entire life cycle of that child is corrupted. The connection between the mother and child is corrupted. There's a chance of XYZ. I don't think that's what's ever been said. But what it's saying is that the alternative is to be able to be in your home, to be around a setting that you're familiar with, to be in a setting where the light systems are the way they're supposed to be in a setting where the environment is exactly conducive to bringing life into this world, not to be in a foreign place, a cement place, a place that's filled with things that our body and our nervous system aren't really regulated to handle, especially during such a stressful experience. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really important that people hear that, because when we talk about home births, when we talk about going this route, when we talk about working with midwives at home and having children at home, we're not trying to, take everything as evil on the other side.
Not at all.
Right. It's just why don't we have this option readily available for us, and how come we're not taught this? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we have to have collaborative care, and 99% of women in this country are going to have a hospital birth. Right. Lori Bregman, who's a really dear friend of mine, and she's a doula up in where I live, and she described it perfectly. She said, because it's the system now is a nightmare. It's like our movie came out 15 years ago, and what's happening now in hospitals after COVID, the birth trauma that's taking place. And she said, as a doula, when she goes to a hospital with her client, she feels like she's setting herself up to go to war. And when she's at home, she just gets to be among the magic. Wow. And it's like, that is really, like, I don't feel like I went to war during my birth. It was actually, I had really amazing care. Right. But the protocols are the protocols. That's and they're not always in the best interest. They're most times they're not really in the best interest of mother and baby. And it's just food for thought. I mean, our film is really it's been such a great conversation starter, to just see things.
When did that film come out?
It came out in 2008. It actually premiered at Tribeca Film Festival in 2007, but it became available to the mainstream in 2008.
The name of the film?
The Business of Being Born.
The Business of Being Born came out in 2008. Mm-hmm. You started making this in 2007, 6?
2004.
Oh, it took years to put it together.
It took 3.5 years to make, yes.
Okay, so fresh off your show, went into this powerful endeavor.
Yes.
Like a life's work, life's journey.
Yes. And I think I was still doing my talk show when I started. I'm trying to remember. It's like, it's so hard to remember, but I was newly in California, starting this new life, and my friend and director, Abby Epstein, she was visiting me. Basically I was like, my life is so different now. You got to come over and see this fat house I bought, and see my kids. And she came over to visit, and I said, I have this idea. It's just, I can't get it. It was like this calling, this like, I have to do this. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it is. But I gave her I gave her Ina May Gaskin's book, Spiritual Midwifery. I gave her Robbie Davis Floyd, who's an anthropologist, Birth as an American Rite of Passage, a great book. And then I gave her my 9-hour home birth video straight from my camcorder. I gave her the tapes, and I was like, here, just like, let me know what you think. And she came back like a week later, and she's like, I think it's a documentary.
Yeah.
And because I just wanted to explore why we are not seemingly, like among my circle of people, like very educated, smart women didn't seem to give a shit about how their babies were born.
Right.
They just wanted to have this healthy baby in their arms. And like, I just felt so strongly that we're missing an opportunity to be really tapped into our power during that rite of passage.
Holy experience, like the cosmic birth.
To be numbed from it, to be like disconnected. It's like for the ease of the system, it just didn't make sense to me.
Obviously, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak from that state. But what I feel into is that the system has indoctrinated the women out there and the women of this world that this is an experience that if you can numb it out and have like slight amnesia around it, it's just going to be a lot easier, and you're going to be able to go through this process like wham bam, just easy in and out. And do you think that's kind of the core message that women are thinking? They don't, kind of like their menstrual cycle, like how do I block it out? Like symptomology, treating the symptom, not healing the system, not connecting to the experience, not connecting to the fact that an egg is dropping every month and what that means inside the body, which I think is one of the most holy experiences in this realm of existence. Is it like, how do we numb everything?
I don't know. You use such big words and you talk so it's so hard to stay
sorry.
focused. So we want to talk about menstruation. Are we talking about? I mean,
I think the system trying to numb it out.
I think it's that, and I think women are indoctrinated to fear this experience.
Right.
That it's an emergency waiting to happen. That their bodies don't work. That their babies are too big. That they're and it's like it's the opposite. It's like most women are going to have a low-risk pregnancy, and their babies, the chances of the baby being too big are so slim and none, and yet they're putting the fear. And I don't think these doctors are bad people. Like, I don't.
No, they're following protocol.
Yeah,
it's protocol,
yeah.
backed up by insurance systems, backed up by mega dollars.
And they have to see a certain amount of patients. They don't have time. Yeah. You don't get to ever have informed consent, true informed consent, ever.
Say that one more time.
You never get to have true informed consent, particularly a laboring woman.
Explain that. What that means exactly.
They do not give you. Don't have the time.
You don't have the
understand
power.
Your options.
Right.
And we give up our power when we're in a system that we are told, we don't know what we're doing. The doctor knows best. That's and it's just, it's the perfect plan for things to go not the way you maybe want. And so the movie, is not about home birth. It's not about do what I did. It really isn't, because I don't expect that to happen. But I want women to see what's possible. Right. Seeing these women, including myself, giving birth outside of what you think, being hooked up to an IV, being flat on your back, being under the lights of, a hospital room with a doctor and a no. Like the images and the footage we share of women we followed for, their whole pregnancies to be in this film, who I'm so indebted to, that was powerful stuff.
Yeah. That's doing God's work.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I just shared, because it was 2 days ago, it was Home Birth Day or something, International Home Birth Celebration Day. So I made a post and I showed 2 pictures that I hadn't even looked at in forever. I found the album. I went digging, looking for it, and I put 2 pictures up of my home birth. And I was transformed, and it went well beyond becoming a mom again. It was really deep and primal, and it stayed with me. I feel like the hardships that I've gone through since, I have tapped into that what the woman I saw in that tub that day, I can do anything. And that's really what I want women to know. Like if they can have, and I want to add that you can be empowered and have an empowered birth anywhere. You can have an empowered C-section. If you are being honored and treated with respect and told what they're about to do to you, and you make a choice, and there's so many things that can be done in any setting, and that that's my hope, is that the work I'm doing makes things better, makes outcomes better. Obviously, we're a mess. This country is such a mess with our
Total absolute disaster.
It is.
Yeah.
It is shameful.
Yeah, it's shameful. We've really lost or forgotten what we've forgotten. I say that all the time when it comes to health and wellness and holistic health, and most people that know me know where I stand on that. Our farming systems, our soil science, everything's been lost, and we're trying to remember what it takes, these types of things that gets us back to our primal self. When you had your second child, even your first child, a waterfall of hormones are releasing, specifically oxytocin, which we know is the love compound, the love molecule, and all those things. Take into consideration that the father of that child, was that father present for that experience?
He was, yes.
He was, okay. And so I've done some research on this that shows that if the father is not actually present during the birth, that there could be an oxytocin crack between the mother and the father, where the mother does not trust the man anymore in her subconscious. There's something to that, and they've run data compilations on that. And I'm saying that just to show you how much we evolve during an experience like that. It's epigenetic, and it makes sense. Human evolution has designed the mother to step up into a safety mode, protector, mother hormones, progesterone, estrogen, all of these things have to occur in perfect unison to develop a higher level of consciousness, because now it's not just about you anymore. You have now this life, and if that didn't happen, there'd be no more humanity.
Right.
There's a sophisticated biochemical experience here. And the same thing with men in this whole thing, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Have you heard that? Do you know anything about that?
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. But I was in an unhappy relationship. Like I can't say that it was a bonding thing looking back on it. And now, granted, I've had my post experience with, but it was, my home birth was incredibly healing, I think, for both of us, and I can speak for myself. I can't even speak to him. I was sexually abused as a small child. I was overweight.
Say that again?
I was sexually abused as a small child. Yeah, and
Ricky.
Yeah,
what the fuck?
It actually, like, I've made peace with it, and
Of course,
and it was, there's so many worse stories, my story
Is
is
this
just
someone
my
you
story.
trusted?
This was someone that was working as a gardener handyman on my property, on my house. I didn't grow up wealthy, but he was building a wall. This older black man, and I was like 6 or 7. But anyway, my point is, what was my point? It's like, I can't even remember what my point is, because I just don't want to make more of it than what it was. I've talked about it a lot.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's okay.
It's like that caused me to be overweight, and I don't even know where I was going with that. Honestly, I was like, you were like talking about it, like it's this big, huge thing. I didn't talk about it when it happened. I never got help. I never got therapy, because I was the happy-go-lucky kid who was fine. It was years and years later, when I was 21, I finally said this out loud, that this had happened to me. And I realized it's happened to so many of us, It's
Right.
like the secret that we keep. It's so much worse keeping the secret as opposed to just,
It doesn't define us. It's not who we
No,
are.
it's a part of me.
Yeah.
It's it's definitely,
But it doesn't define you.
No.
It's not keeping you prisoner and keeping you trapped.
no,
And-
nothing
yeah.
I've gone through. And I've gone through a lot. I don't feel like anything has sort of kept me back. It's I think there's a running theme. Even 9/11, as traumatic as it was, I found my purpose from that experience. I found the work I'm doing, who I am. That is a huge part of it. I changed the entire trajectory of my life in that instant.
When you came out with your film and you started the process with your film, how many people started to appear in your life, and how many people did you start dropping like flies? Did that cleanse your field? Were people like, what the hell is she doing?
I don't know if they cleansed my field, because I think like some pretty toxic people came into my life at that time too.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I think.
These are people that you met in Southern California?
Yes.
There's a lot of them in LA.
There were, one in particular, this total asshole. But yeah, he came.
Let's get into it. I'm here for it.
Well, just I don't even want to admit that it even like he exists. But like I've let many people in that didn't deserve to be in, whether it was inside of my body in a relationship, or in this case, he was like my gay best friend.
Huh.
And it became really creepy. It was like All About Eve, and he. Yeah.
All About Eve?
That movie, All About Eve, where like the Betty Davis movie.
No clue.
Where it's been a long time, but it's like someone basically wanting my life, it felt like this person. Yeah. It was really toxic. I don't even know how we went on to this.
I do. I asked you.
You asked me about all the magical people that come in after.
Yeah, who came in and who got lost, and what was that experience like? Because you're this New Yorker, you're on this talk show, you're one of the most famous people in the country, if not worldwide, doing this whole thing, and then all of a sudden you're making documentaries on home birthing. So I'm just showing a sliding scale that is a crazy dichotomy.
It is a crazy dichotomy,
and
for
that's
sure.
And that's fucking epic.
It is. I mean, I love reinventing myself.
Yeah.
I love doing new things. And yeah, it was a huge shift. And I feel like I started to come into my own, and which is ironic because the talk show, had my name on the rug, the Ricki Lake show. That was me.
Yeah.
That was definitely me and who I was. But like, for example, I was like a Nancy Reagan, just say no to drugs. I was a disciple of Nancy Reagan back when I was on that show.
Really?
I was super judgmental and closed-minded and fear-filled about all things cannabis, psychedelics, like you name it. I was just like, had like a puss on my face about it, And it was years later that I, went full 180, and now I'm,
What did full 180 look like in that regard?
I mean, what have I done?
This is Wake the Fake Up.
This is Wake the Fake Up. Christian, my beloved who passed.
Yeah.
He's the one who gently guided me to ayahuasca.
Okay, so you sat in ayahuasca ceremony
many times.
Where did you first drink ayahuasca?
I first did it in Topanga Canyon.
Everybody's initiation.
It was a disaster.
I believe that.
Because here's why.
Oh, that's the best ever. Oh my God. I'm sorry your experience was a disaster, but I've had this conversation so many times.
It's horrible, but I know why. It's my fault. It's not about where I did it.
Of course.
I did it because I didn't want him experiencing it for the first time without me.
Oh, God.
So, I mean, come on. It's like that is. So I got my ass kicked the whole night. I was in a fetal position, like begging for this to be over.
Yeah.
Didn't throw up until on the way home. It was a nightmare. And so the miracle is that Christian Evans got me to do it again, because I was like, I'm never doing that again. That was like all these people, and it was in a house I didn't know, the people I didn't know. Yeah. I'm a public figure. I don't think of myself as a public figure almost ever. Like I really am like I'm very normal.
For sure.
But it was in that space. It was super cramped. People, it was a disaster. But I did do it about a year later, in my home in Brentwood, California, with just my husband and a shaman and a facilitator. So it was just us. Nice. And it was a miracle, a miracle that weekend.
Cracked you open.
In the way that I never, ever thought.
Beautiful.
Because my intention is always letting go, whether it's resentment, whether it's anything. I mean, I hold on. Yeah. And yeah, it was a really, really magical healing experience. And I've gone on to I did it in Ibiza. I did it Northern California. I did it like bunch in Guerneville. There's this amazing place called Wildwood. I've done it, and I did it in Ojai. Yeah, I haven't been called to do that medicine lately, but I've done the deep medicine journeys with other things.
Sure, when ayahuasca calls, that's the time.
Mm-hmm.
You never push with that medicine, and she knows when it's your time. So I'm glad that you were able to rewrite that ship.
Me too.
Do it on your own accord.
Oh, can I tell you one of the most amazing, every time has been miraculous.
Yeah.
And I've gotten such great lessons, like incredible. But one time I did it, the one and only time I did it during the day up in Guerneville and under the redwoods. And this moment of I was on the ground, like praying, and I had my hands on the ground underneath these trees, and I saw and felt the earth's heartbeat. And it was just the tears and the gratitude and the love and it was unbelievable. And this was with Christian. Christian was with me, and he during that journey under the redwoods, he held me like I was a little baby. He would always want to he could see my little girl in me, he's like, there she is. And he was holding me and I'm looking up at him and I'm crying and he's crying. And he's like, he hit me in my heart right here. And he's like, no matter what, I'll always be right here. I'll always be right here. I'll always be right here. Because he knew he was not going to be here for much longer. He knew. And he is right here. He's literally right here.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
A lot of people have premonition of their transition and they just kind of know that their time is coming. I've seen that around me with friends. I once felt that way with myself. I was like, I don't know how much longer I have here. And I just got caught up in that space. So you married Christian, what year?
2012.
2012. And he held your hand through medicine and through snapping you into another world and showing you a different side of things. At what point did you realize that he had, you said he was bipolar, or he was dealing with some inner demons? When did you realize that?
He told me when we met. So when we met, I had a house fire that I accidentally burned this house down. It's literally,
What?
It was divine intervention. Yeah, I was renting a beach house, like on the beach, little, it was not much bigger than this room. It was a wooden house, felt like a houseboat. And I'd rented it.
Where?
This was just the first beach, Topanga Beach,
Okay, yeah.
That beach, that strip. And this was in 2010. And so we had met through friends, but the fire happened and the house was gone in 15 minutes and I ran out of this burning building. It was very dramatic. But I had met him and we got together. So 3 days later after the fire, I had another house in Brentwood. I had a last minute party because I literally survived running out of a house with the clothes on my back and my kids and my dog. Literally, it was that scary. He came to the party. He came to my birthday. I wanted anybody that was in my life at that time to come and celebrate my birthday. So he came, and that night we got together. Now I did something that I wouldn't do again, but I made him before we had sex. I made him commit to me. I said, if you're going to stick it in, you're going to be my man.
Ricki,
verbatim.
That's a good line right there.
It worked. And he was planning to take his life at that time. So he had, it's a whole,
What do you mean he was?
He was planning to take his life. He was
suffering that much?
He was suffering. He had chronic pain from a car accident. He was bipolar. He had just come off of a manic episode, and then they crash, and was in this state of just depression and despair. So he was planning to kill himself then, but he was a man of his word, and he committed to me that night. And so he changed the trajectory. He stayed for me.
Wow.
It sounds so.
Were you attracted to that energy? Is it something inside of you that wanted to be a healer or to be what if you look at it outside of your body?
Here's the thing. Okay, so I didn't know in that moment that he was suicidal.
You didn't
know. Not at that moment.
Okay.
That night, this is what was going on in his head. He committed to me. We had sex that night. He became my man.
Yeah.
And he did tell me in the very beginning that he was bipolar, but I didn't look it up. I said, oh yeah, we all have our quirks. I'm a control freak. That's I took it as a character trait. Oh, well, no big deal. Well, so I didn't know what that looked like. Right. It was 4 years later that he had his first manic episode with me. So in 2014. So yeah, we met in 2010.
What did that look like?
Oh my God, it was definitely more shocking than his eventual suicide, because this was a man that I took care of. He was very ill. He was he was so gifted, like he was magic.
Yeah.
So he's like Daniel Raphael. He's like, he had these gifts, and he was this empath, and he was this intuitive, and he couldn't watch the news because it would like literally he would just break down and every part of his body would hurt. He was so special, but he was not of this earth. He was an alien. He referred to himself as he was like of a different world.
Yeah.
And
Unfamiliar in his body. Yeah.
and just like he couldn't make life work without me. Like I kept
So were
it
you
together.
kind of a mother energy with him?
No, I wouldn't say mother, caretaker.
Okay, caretaker. Wow.
Caretaker. And for sure, like when I married him,
You took that on, you knew that?
I knew when I married him, he's never going to be able to bring in a paycheck. You know, he's
Yeah.
never going to be able to really, like I would have to, he was debilitated, but not, you know, like, but a great time, turned me on to Ibiza, turned me on, like all these things that like I knew nothing about. He exposed me to, and he shared with me, and I'm so grateful. The Manic episode came literally out of nowhere. It first presented like he was doing great, because, you know, he was someone that was always low-lying depression, always under. That's my base is probably one above normal.
So kind of withdrawn, and then would get quiet.
Yeah.
And then sleepy, doesn't want to
Depressed,
get out of
pain,
bed,
unmotivated,
not taking care of themselves.
but funny and quick and loving and gentle and adored me. He freaking ate me with a spoon. He like absolutely adored me. And when he became manic, it first looked like, oh my God, he's getting up in the morning and he's oil pulling and he's meditating and he's doing yoga with me, and like he has all these ideas. And then it shifts to he thought he was God, and he thought he could cure cancer with his hands, and he didn't need his Range Rover that I bought him. He left it on the side of the road outside of Vegas because he could time travel and fly. I mean, it was like so crazy. And he would turn on me. He had never said a cross word to me. He would never say anything other than loving and kind to me. And he started snapping at me, and then, I mean, it just was crazy. It was just like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like literally.
Was it threatening ever? Did you ever feel like your safety was in jeopardy, or your kids?
I mean, he never threatened me, but I definitely felt unsafe.
Yeah, he could just snap.
Yeah, and it was his sister who tipped me off from in the beginning, because I didn't know what it looked like. But looking back on it, you could see pictures. I could show you a picture of when he's in a manic episode. It's like he's different.
He shifted into completely different.
It's like his eyes and that smile. I mean, it just is not him.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he'd crash. So that in 2014, he had this episode that lasted about 3 months. He's gone, and then he crashed, and then he's going to kill himself.
When you say he crashed, you mean energetically his life wiped out?
I mean, I don't mean
crash?
to be. He would just go into a deep depression, and called me out of the blue. Like I'm trying to get out, like figure out my life without him. And he was like giving away all my money to charities. I mean, like the thing is, he had a heart of gold, and so in this like psychosis, he wanted to fix the planet.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, he totally was like on this mission to heal the world. I mean, and so then he I can't say he recovered, but he stabilized, and he had put him in a treatment center, and then I ended up taking him back, and we were back together for another 2 years, and then it happened again.
Wow.
And this time was even more dramatic and more destructive and more. I mean, it's like I couldn't keep going. I needed to like save myself and my kids, and so we ended.
Where's your friends and family in this whole experience?
They were there. I mean, they were there.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it's a blur to me. Like I'm reliving it, and it's like
I don't mean to.
No, I'm not triggered.
Yeah,
I actually think it helps in my healing, and it helps. I know I've helped others by talking about this experience. And he did not die in vain. Like Christian, he told me when we got married, we were together for something greater than just us. And I made this movie, Weed the People, about cannabis. And, I made that, and that was his legacy. Like this project and what I learned in that, the making of that, and now how open I am to, talking about plant medicine and talking about my experience and having these experiences. He was amazing.
Wow.
He wasn't meant to be here for as long as I wanted him. But he left and he called in my new husband. I am convinced. I wish I could prove it, but I don't need to prove it. I know. I have a deep knowing that Christian left. He spared me. He didn't leave me. He's right here. He spared me. And he called in this man, and this man is the man he wished he could have been for me.
Wow, that's really beautiful that you have that perspective. And your perspective is your reality. So that's the truth of it.
100%.
When you found out that he had transitioned, were you in shock? Did you feel a sense of relief energetically for his soul? Not for you, but for him?
I definitely got to that place,
Yeah.
and I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised because I knew, I know it wasn't my fault. I never ever felt like I was to blame, but I knew he couldn't survive without me. I knew that was a good chance that could happen.
Yeah.
And I tried to be there via text as his friend. I was in, what happens is I told you that those 3 months, when they're crazy and manic, and they're in a psychosis, there was no reaching him. It's when he crashed that we would get back in touch. And it was at that time I couldn't see him again, at least, I saw him 3 days before he died. He came to say goodbye to me. And we had one last night together. And I did everything that all my friends and therapists told me not to do. They all said, don't see him at night. Don't have alcohol. Don't, bring him home. Don't have sex with him. Don't, and I was like, oh, no, I'm going to meet him in the day. I'm going to meet him in the day. No.
You did all of that?
We went, he didn't even drink alcohol, and he had a beer with me. We went for happy hour sushi. I brought him home. We made love all night. And thank God, because that was his goodbye to me. And had I rejected him and then he took his life, that would have been a whole different narrative that I was living through, know?
Wow.
We said goodbye. I didn't know it was goodbye. I didn't know that was the last time I was going to see him. But when it happened, I wasn't surprised.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss. And
thank you.
Yeah, that's a trip.
He was so fucking rad. He was so...
I wonder if I ever met him.
I don't think so, because he died before. That's even the thing. Even that festival in Burning Man. I went to Burning Man that year for the first time, right after the Eclipse Festival. I went.
This was 2017.
2017, and I brought his ashes. He died in February 11th, 2017, and the Eclipse Festival was in August, and then Burning Man, and I brought his ashes. So I had him. 11 was very significant to him. 11/11. I have an 11/11 tattoo, along with his wedding vow to me. I vow to continue loving you. I have it in, I took it, I found it, the stationery in his handwriting. And so I had it put, I don't have tattoos. I'm like a nice Jewish girl, but I had to honor him in this way. I will always honor this incredible man. And it's a message for me to continue loving myself. And that's the big piece. It's so much I learned about myself, but I love myself the way he loved me, and that had to come together in order for me to meet my new partner, Ross. It had to happen that way.
It opened up the channel for that to occur. Where are you at today? What is going on in your realm today? What are you passionate about? What can we do together? How can I?
Oh my God!
I'm here. I'm all the fuck in.
Me too.
We speak the same language. Yeah. And there's so much to unfold.
I'm so grateful to see you again and to just be on this path with you. I'm living my best life. These days of my life, which has been pretty extraordinary. I've done it all. I'm the most content. I'm the most just proud of myself, and I'm living, we call it grounded euphoria. I am in this state of euphoria, but it's not manic. It's like the tree. I'm this grounded tree, and I'm with this beautiful man who makes me so happy. He is so wonderful, and his family is wonderful. And what we have, our friends, our chosen family, our home is epic, and I built it, and it took so long to do, and there were so many obstacles in the way, and it almost didn't happen a number of times. And Christian's energy and spirit is on the land, and I did a crystal energy grid in the foundations of my house. So people come into our space and it's just like, wow, like
It's
what is
activated.
this? It is
Yeah.
activated. It is
Yeah.
totally like intentional. Everything that's there
Yeah.
is it's just, yeah. And I live a very authentic life of gratitude. Like I wake up every day with my man and we just pinch ourselves at how blessed we are. And we also feel like we deserve this, you know? And that's like, I don't think I deserved it for a long time. And I think I've come into like 50s, you know, turning 50, I'm 54. Yeah,
The
it's
new
like
30?
the noise. What?
The new 30.
I think so. I mean, I
Absolutely.
think so. I'm the best me I've ever been.
Yeah.
And you don't give a shit about what other people think anymore. Like
Fuck
that.
it. Yeah.
I really don't. I am living in integrity. I am doing great work. I have left my mark. I have raised amazing young men who are really fucking cool people who like themselves and are happy. You know,
Hallelujah
I
there.
know, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like I get to have a sleepover every night with my best friend, and we get high every night.
Overlooking the Pacific.
Overlooking the
smoking
ocean.
beautiful cannabis.
That I grew on my land.
Yeah.
That is like, yeah,
I mean,
doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't get better than that. And I love that you're so stoked on your sanctuary. You know, I'm big on sanctuary. I'm big on like having your roots, your home, you know.
Well, can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
So a running theme in my life has been never feeling safe at home.
Interesting. It started as a child.
When I was
and when
molested
you went
in my
through.
home, because
Yeah.
when I was molested over a period of time in my home, I was like 6 or 7, and my mother was upstairs. So this man, you know, so I didn't feel safe in my home, even with my mother there. And then, you know, when I was later,
I gotta ask, they catch this motherfucker?
it was the time, it was like the late 70s, like 78,
So it was
79.
just-
No, he was like fired and we never saw him again. So like, it was literally like, it never happened. And I didn't get therapy, but that wasn't the time. Like, I don't blame, my parents did
All
the
right, I'm
best they
sorry.
could.
I
They
didn't mean,
did.
I had to say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and that wasn't done at the time.
Yeah.
And that was oh God, you're too young to know, but there was this McMartin trial that was going on at that time, this very famous California case of a preschool that was the people that worked there and ran it were being accused, and it was like all over the news.
Whoa.
And we would watch the trial happening on the news at night in my parents' room, and I remember just like feeling like they were like staring at me through the like when it was going on. Like I just was I shut down, never talked about it again. But so that happened, and then years later, my house, I'd made all this money from Hairspray and a bunch of other movies, and I was 19 years old, bought my first house in LA, and then lost my job and couldn't pay the mortgage and had it taken away by the bank. Then I burned that house down in Malibu. Then, you know, like then 9/11 happened in my most sacred space in the West Village, that apartment. I just had this primal fucking incredible birth experience where I felt like I was like the goddess of, you know, what's the god Hera? I was goddess Hera,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then 2 months later, 9/11 happened. So like every time I've just never felt safe. And this is the first time that I'm in this home and I feel like this is safe.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked for you,
Thank you.
your husband,
Thank
your
you.
kids, your
You'll meet 'em.
entire crew. Yeah, I can't wait to break bread with you guys. And just
Absolutely.
walk the land and get
You're
into all that.
you're just gonna plots.
Yeah. Well, we got so now we can oscillate. We have the Laguna and we have the Malibu, which
Yeah.
are actually quite connected energetically in certain ways.
Absolutely. We my friends who I really want you to meet, but they're the ones who did this crystal energy grid. We've done like clearings on the I'm the west. We have my friend's house who's in the east. He's in east like Los Feliz area, and then the south. So yeah, and then my friends are in Fresno and their farm. So yeah,
We
we've
got
done
the corners.
Absolutely.
Make a hexagon.
Absolutely.
Did you ever make it to Aja, Malibu? Do you remember Aja? Aja was a 40-acre property up in the hills. A lady named Ananya created it. It was the most like ecliptic sanctuary I've ever seen, with crystal gardens.
No,
and
I
the
don't.
whole
I think
thing.
it
It burnt
rings
to a crisp.
Oh, it did during
in
the
Malibu
fire.
fire. I'm talking about this is like a $75 million property.
Wow.
And it was built with like the most up leveling critical care in terms of directions and materials, all on the level. And that thing just went poof in the wind. And I remember she called me when it happened at like 4 o'clock on the rise on a Saturday, screaming blood curdling scream, but laughing. It's burned. It's gone. Like it was like almost like she had birthed it and the
let it
phoenix
go.
and let it go. And I'll never forget that 2-minute conversation. I'll show you the videos, and you couldn't believe that somewhere like this was built.
Did she rebuild?
No, of course no. She's from Australia. She went back to Australia. And,
Wow.
And it's I was wondering if you had been there because that was finalized in 2011.
Wow. No, I wasn't like. I wasn't that. I'm still not familiar with Malibu.
Right.
We don't leave our house. It's such a, like, we have everything we need.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like we haven't explored now. We're just starting to.
Okay.
And we love it. It's a really.
There's cool pockets
it's
there.
It's so awesome. Yeah.
I'm surprised, like, you just to build your house, you had to go through coastal commission, and was that a total full-on
It was a
experience?
shit show. I mean, my first architect was doing unpermitted work or permitted work without a permit. So that I don't know. I've never built a house before. I don't know how that works. Yeah, that was really fun.
That's berserk.
He's a fucking asshole. So that shut us down for a while. Then it was one thing after another that just and here's the thing. Like looking back on it, I met my beloved husband, my new husband, Ross. I met him during COVID, living in Marina Del Rey, 5-minute walk from him, waiting for my house to be done. So basically, I had to be there. COVID had to happen for us to slow the fuck down so that we can be in each other's sphere. Because he's this, like, ex-Mormon lawyer. Like he literally is not. He would not be at one of our like symbiosis, festival things. No, but we are together, and it all makes sense now.
Perfect.
It's so perfect. It is.
That's the best. I love hearing those kinds of stories and how fluid life is.
Yeah.
One decision to
sliding doors, right?
Yes, sliding doors.
Yeah.
Or you decide to like not make it through that red light, and you just stop there.
Yep.
Right. And that changes the whole algorithm of your life.
Yeah.
And that's a trip when you
I
really think
love
about
it.
Yeah.
Our story, I want to give people hope because I am someone, A, I'm in my 50s, and B, I've been through a lot, losing Christian, like, I can't believe I've survived all of that and come out of it happier than ever. Literally, like, I've been happy most of my life. I've been pretty freaking happy. This is like a different level.
You can't recognize light without knowing the darkest pitch night ever. And that's the tattoo I have here, which is actually an ancient Zoroastrian scripture that was said by the Ahura Mazda, which was the Christ figure of Zoroastrianism, which is my ancient bloodline's faith. This is 5,000 years before Christ. And this is spoken through the tongue of Aja, which is nature. And it basically says, and this is your story, I'm seeing it right here, it's interesting, is that your deepest level of illumination appears in the darkest night.
That is so true. Wow.
Yeah, and that's really why you're
for birth. Like
birth.
The analogy, like you can't have the ecstasy without the agony. They go hand in hand.
Right? Yeah. Amber, she's been on this podcast. I filmed with her 4 or 5 weeks ago. She'd been on the first season of Wake the Fake Up. She's the orgasmic birther. Do you know who?
I mean, I know orgasmic birth, and I know, like, it never happened to me.
Yeah.
I did not experience it. I know it's possible.
Yeah.
But I'd have to see her face. I might know her.
She's epic. Her ex-husband's Nassim Harriman.
Okay.
I don't know if you know who Nassim is, but they're people in our scope that are doing amazing things, and I'll definitely link you up, or we'll all have dinner and hang out and do something epic.
I'd love that.
Ricki, I didn't know where this was going to go.
Me neither.
And I'm fucking stoked that I was able to pick up a lot of your story through just having a conversation with you. And that's really what I designed this whole thing to be, and the team design is that this is just a place where people can sit, rap, and things can organically come out. Mm-hmm. There's nothing scripted, no idea of walking into certain barriers or needing to expose certain things, but just to have a straight up conversation. And I'm so happy to get to know you so much more. I really appreciate it.
And I know the thing you like about me the best, that I met Tupac.
Yeah, that I'm not going to stop talking about. Tupac was my guiding light, when I was 11, 12, 13, 14. He was my Christ figure almost.
He just got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame like this past week.
I just shared it. Yeah,
amazing.
I know his brother Mopreme.
Do.
And yeah, it's just most people had no idea what that guy incarnated to do in his 25 years to life.
Unbelievable.
It's just fascinating and unbelievable. And he held it down. And a lot of us Middle Easterns, like Persians and Afghans, we were magnetized towards his frequency of just telling it how it was and speaking from such a deep resonance, because there was love and conviction and pain in his words and his voice. And I feel that with your story too. So it's like really awesome to hear that you got to meet Tupac in '94.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew what a big deal that was.
Yeah.
It's like, it's always hindsight's 2020.
What a crazy ride.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll do a New York trip sometime.
Yeah.
Do you ever go back?
I do when I work.
Okay.
And I still have friends there and stuff.
Yeah.
But I love New York and I love visiting, but I'm not I don't need to be
You're
by
not
coastal.
attracted to New York whatsoever.
I am attracted. I love being in New York, but I'm not jonesing to when you see the setup I got, which isn't fancy. It isn't like ostentatious. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's a vibe.
Yeah.
And so, I am traveling a little bit more. Like I went on Summit at Sea, last week. I'm going to Alaska on Saturday to visit my stepson. My stepson is in Kodiak, Alaska.
Okay.
He's in the Coast Guard. So we're going to visit him.
That's epic.
So I've been traveling and we just went to Mill Valley. It was so amazing up there.
Yep.
So no, I love expanding and going new places. I want to go back to Ibiza. I'm so jealous. Maybe October. I know you said October.
It's the best time to go.
It is the best.
We're gonna have an epic private party, and then we're doing the Sixth Sense with Richard Rudd, Gene Keys. You got to be there.
Okay, I'm gonna look into it if I can make it work, because I got to bring Ross to my favorite place,
of course,
outside of Malibu.
Absolutely, Ricki. Thank you so much for making the journey down to Laguna Beach. Love connecting with you. What a fucking ride. It's just beginning. And here we go.
Yay.